Hello, folks. Hello, folks. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Causey's Classics, brought to you by Black Cat Comics in Rockin' Milpitas, your one-stop shop for all things superhero. Shop online at black-cat-comics.com. Causey's Classics is a show about vintage comics, awesome, great classic comics from the eras gone by. We will be talking about all kinds of fun things. Tonight's topic is new beginnings. We've got some cool books from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, maybe even a modern cool classic. If you're interested in purchasing any of the books that we're going to be talking about this evening, open up another window, go to black-cat-comics.com, click on shop, click on Causey's Classics, and when you hear me say, make it live, hit your refresh button and the book in my hand will magically appear on your screen. If you want to purchase that book, go through the whole thing, buy that book. If you just put it in your shopping cart and Bob puts it in his shopping cart and he checks out, Bob's going to get the book and you're going to miss out. And Bob's sneaky that way. So if you want to purchase the book, go through the whole process. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. If you're not interested in purchasing anything this evening, just sit back, relax, participate if you would like in a fun conversation about some classic comics. Let's go ahead and get started. As I said at the top, the theme tonight is new beginnings. So we're going to talk about some first issues, just that, new beginnings, new story arcs, new writers, things where new things happened to the characters in the books that we love. Going to start with a kind of quiet gem this evening. This is Alpha Flight number 51. Alpha Flight number 51. Can anybody really quickly tell me what makes this book extra special and why it's a new beginning? This is the first Marvel comic done by a guy named Jim Lee. Jim Lee is somebody that you might have heard of. He's done a few popular comics over the years, and this is his very first work at Marvel Comics, Alpha Flight number 51. Other than it being a Jim Lee Wells Portacio early book, there's not a whole lot key about it, just another cool issue of Alpha Flight, admittedly one of my more favorite Marvel titles. But anytime you can find the first work by somebody that goes on to be something huge, that's a whole lot of fun. We're moving this guy for just $10. Like I say, it's not hugely key, but it's kind of a quiet key. If you're a Jim Lee fan, you need this one. If you're a History of Comics fan, you need this one. I remember way back in the day, I was reading my Wizard magazine price guide, and it said Alpha Flight 51, first Jim Lee Marvel work. I was like, I have every issue of Alpha Flight. I'm sure I've got that one. Anyway, there it is. Alpha Flight 51, just $10. First Marvel book by Jim Lee. Let's go ahead and make it live. Like I say, just sort of a cool, soft hit to start with this evening. And while we're on the subject of Jim Lee, our next book, also in a $10 category, is Heroes Reborn, Iron Man number 1. You've been hearing a little bit about Heroes Reborn. That is Marvel's next big event. They're going to do a modern version of this classic comic. If you were around back in the 90s, you remember some Heroes Reborn. They took Cap and Iron Man and the Fantastic Four, gave them sort of their own Marvel universe so they could tell side stories. Again, this one is another Jim Lee, Wells Portacio early Marvel book. Jim's doing the writing on this one, Mr. Portacio. You say Portacio, I say Portacio. Just a cool classic. Again, there's this one, there's the Fantastic Four, there's Captain America from Rob Liefeld. The Jim Lee Fantastic Four stuff was especially cool, and this Iron Man is especially cool. Again, a new beginning. Marvel just sort of felt like the Avengers line had maybe gotten a little stale, and so they got some top artists, some top talent, and did some top books with it. And like I say, they're going to be busting out Heroes Reborn again, so I thought it would be fun to bust out this little gem. Iron Man number 1, Jim Lee, Wells Portacio. Let's go ahead and make it live. Like I say, just a couple of modern gems to give you the idea of what we're doing here. New beginnings. Jim Lee gets his first comic at Marvel. New beginnings, a new Iron Man number 1. And now for pretty classic history-making little gem is this guy. New Beginnings. The all-time greatest comic artist ever, Jack Kirby. You can argue with me if you want, but most people would say you'd lose. Jack Kirby, who you know from Everything Ever, wrapped up his tenure at Marvel Comics rather historically, and went over to the distinguished competition, to DC Comics, and started doing a few things. And one of the first of them was this little gem, Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle #1. One of the coolest comics there is. And this one, along with the New Gods and Commandy and a few other things he did with his first tenure with DC Comics, doesn't get any more classic than anything Jack Kirby. He wrote and drew this one. This is totally a reader copy. This is, we're letting this one go for like $25. It's about a 4.0, just to make that clear. This is like a $150, $200 book when you find it in mint shape. It's really nice, don't get me wrong. Just got some creases and some this and that's. I could let it go for more, but I'm letting you guys steal it for just $25 because it's a great book and everybody needs this in their collection. Everybody wants to take this one home and read it. It's hard to find a reader copy. It's hard to find an affordable copy of this book. So I'm letting this one go to the first person who wants to pick that up. Like I say, doesn't get any more New Beginnings than Jack Kirby wrapping up Fantastic Four #102 and then heading over to DC. You can, the story is all over the history of comics about how Jack leaves Marvel. We don't need to, I don't have time on this show to go all into it, but he goes to DC and he starts some all-time greats like this one, like New Gods, like The Demon, like Commandy. Great stuff. So let's go ahead and make it live. Mr. Miracle, #1, 1971.
And we're live.
Like I say, folks, this is an all-time great, and it's hard to find an affordable copy like this. So I highly, highly recommend picking this up. Yes, questions, comments, concerns.
Alpha Flight 51 is already sold.
Alpha Flight 51 has already found a good home. Someone very savvy out there. Congratulations, folks. That's a great book, and you're going to enjoy it. I would suggest you picking up the other 50. If you can see it, I've got #12 up there on my back wall. One of my all-time favorite books. And moving on, though, boy, I could sure talk about Mr. Miracle and Jack Kirby and DC forever and ever. But moving into back to the Marvel side and into the 1980s, New Beginnings. This is XFactor #1 from 1986 or 1987. This is a book that's been getting a lot of heat lately. This is in this series where you find the first Apocalypse and a whole bunch of other things. At the time this came out, it was the return of Jean Grey. Jean Grey comes back from the dead in a Fantastic Four issue just before this. This is the, of course, reunion of the original X-Men. New Beginnings, from New X-Men to X-Factor. I really enjoyed this title back in the day, and it's kind of become a modern classic. The Peter David run is another New Beginning that I thought about busting out for this show. Like I say, just an all-time great classic X-Men book at a time when there weren't a whole lot of X-Men books yet. And I was really excited to see them put the original X-Men back together. It was great to see Jean Grey back in action, all those things. So this is sort of a seminal moment in the history of X books. Really nice copy of this. Again, sort of fits our New Beginnings theme. Kind of like the Heroes Reborn things and some other things. Sort of a quiet key, but a key nonetheless, and a whole lot of fun. Letting it go for $25. X-Factor #1. I think it's Jackson Guice, if I'm not mistaken, who, if you're an 80s comics fan like me, you know the name Jackson Guice quite well, mostly from Flash books, I would imagine. But like I say, this one certainly fit our New Beginnings theme, so let's go ahead and make it live. X-Factor #1. Cool classic original X-Men book.
We're live.
There are lots of things that, yes, question.
Mr. Miracle #1's already sold out.
Oh, there you go. Somebody is very, very savvy. Mr. Miracle has already found a home. Let's take those off the wall so as to not tempt anybody further. You're going to really enjoy this book, whoever picked that up, Mr. Miracle. And folks, those of you who have missed out, but I've tempted you with it, pick up the trade paperback. There's a trade paperback for the, I don't know, first 12 issues of this run, maybe the whole run. And it's, I don't know, one of the coolest things you'll ever read. All right, getting back to New Beginnings. And wow, I'm going to preface this a little. So doesn't really get any more of a new beginning than what we comic book people call post-crisis. Crisis on Infinite Earths was, boy, at the time, one of the biggest things to ever hit comics. Maybe it's still one of the biggest things to ever hit comics. DC's multiple worlds and all the continuity had just gotten totally out of control. And so they put together a 12-issue miniseries called Crisis on Infinite Earths in an attempt to sort of explain everything, condense everything, and then release a new DC universe upon the world. These days, that sort of concept happens maybe a little more often than we might like. You get the New 52 and the Rebirth, and they sort of do these universal-wide things. Like I say, clearly a whole lot more often than they used to. But in 1986, it had never really been done, and it was a big, big deal. And at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths, they basically relaunched the whole DC universe, which again may not sound as a big deal as it used to, but at the time it was a really, really big deal to get a Flash #1, a Wonder Woman #1, Superman #1, Batman #1. These were all great, great, great times for DC fans, which brings me to this new beginning. Maybe one of the very, very best of the whole bunch, maybe one of the most solid relaunches, reboots of any comic ever. This is, the post-crisis Wonder Woman #1 by the all-time legendary George Perez. Doesn't get any more legendary, at least in the modern comics, than George Perez. And like I say, you can talk about all kinds of post-crisis things. Lord knows I love my post-crisis John Byrne Superman. But honestly, as time has gone on, pound for pound, panel for panel, this might be the best run. This might be the best post-crisis DC book that they did. And it belongs in anybody's collection. It just becomes more and more of a gem as time goes on. Frankly, like a lot of Wonder Woman books, it was one of the more underrated and underappreciated titles for the longest time. You could buy George Perez comics, George Perez Wonder Woman books for, a couple of bucks at conventions for years and years and years. But people have finally wised up, and this run has been bought up, and this book's becoming a little harder to find, especially in really nice shape. If you're any kind of comic fan, if you're a Wonder Woman fan, a DC fan, whoever you might be, you need this book in your collection. It is really all-time great. It's a new telling of the origin. It sort of establishes new villains for Wonder Woman, a new way of looking at Themyscira and all this sort of thing. Like I say, it is a true reboot, a true relaunch, and it's just an all-time classic. I'm letting it go for $50. It's a really, really nice copy. And like I say, just sort of belongs in anyone's stash. If you have one of these, consider yourself fortunate. Bust that out, get it into a new bag and board. And if you don't, you should start here and pick up the rest of them in the run. They are only becoming more key and more popular as the new versions of the classic villains and classic characters like Cheetah and different things reappear in this series. I was a huge, huge fan of this book at the time, and of course I still am. That's why I'm ranting and ranting about it. Can't say enough. And like I say, it's just, as far as our theme for new beginnings, doesn't get any more new beginning than the post-crisis DC universe. Pick up Flash #1, pick up those John Byrne Man of Steels, Batman Year One from Frank Miller comes from that. All-time great stuff. And well, just can't say any more than that till you pick it up and read it for yourself. So let's go ahead and make it live. Wonder Woman #1. Take a close look at some of that George Perez awesomeness. You've probably seen this cover, and you've seen it homaged in several other Wonder Woman stories.
We're live.
Great, great stuff there. Thank you, George. Set that back. And now, new beginnings. Let's talk about, this one's a gem. All right. So, new beginnings. Let's talk about a new Spider-Man. Let's talk about the first appearance of Miles Morales. Let me say right out the gate, this is a second printing. This is the second printing of this book. The first print runs anywhere from like $300 to $50 to $500. I've seen this book just going nuts lately. And honestly, I've been sitting on this for a little while, even as a second print. It's fetching top dollar. I've seen graded ones for over $100. I mean, Miles was awesome from the very beginning, but since the animated movie, was that last year, 2 years ago, I guess, technically in 2019, he became, of course, much more mainstream, and now everybody's after Miles Morales. Everybody's after this book. Obviously, first prints are hard to find and very expensive. If your stimulus check was not quite enough to cover a first print, but you would really like to get a copy, then, well, that's what reprints are all about. Letting this one go for $50. Like I say, I'm seeing it go anywhere from 25 to 100. I probably should just hang on to it or maybe take it home and put it in my stash, but I'm letting it go. So some savvy Miles Morales fan or someone who has a person in their life who's a huge Miles Morales fan, this would be a great gift for somebody. So like I say, even as a second print, it's a hard book to find. And again, doesn't get any more new beginnings than the first appearance of Miles Morales. Yes.
Wonder Woman already sold.
Wonder Woman gets a new forever home. Again, congratulations, folks. These are some great books. I got to say, I took a little time. I like the theme of new beginnings. It's a new year. It's January. So you know, I wanted to find some cool gems, and these are some really fun books. You guys are going to enjoy those. That Wonder Woman's all-time great, and this is all-time great. I know reprint or second print is a dirty word to some people. There are a lot of folks who I don't know, take offense to these sorts of things, but hey, as I say, as has always been the case for me personally, reprints are sometimes the only way you can get a hold of great key books without paying an arm and a leg. So first, Miles Morales, Ultimate Comics Fallout #4, the second printing. Like I say, I'm letting it go for $50. If you're a Miles fan, you need this book in your stash. So let's go ahead and make it live. First appearance of Miles Morales. Cool stuff.
And we're live.
And, you know, I was going to spend a little more time with the Causey's Classic Show. Here at Black Hat, we talk a lot about the new books. We do the new comics video every Wednesday. We do the Comic Shop Talk Live show where we talk about this week's books. Got some of this week's books back here. We talk a lot about the new books, and that's awesome. New books are a ton of fun, but we don't talk a lot about the old stuff. And I love the old stuff, and I like to give it more exposure. I like to give the folks who only know the new books, or maybe folks just new to comics, I like to give them a little of the history, a little of the background on what makes these cool eras neat. Tonight I got a little overzealous, so I was just sort of talking about the books. But things like Heroes Reborn in the 90s, things like Post-Crisis that I went into, things like Kirby leaving Marvel for DC, things like new artists that go on to be awesome. There's all kinds of things that make old books fun, fun to read, fun to collect, all sorts of things that make old school books interesting. First appearances of characters, first work by an artist, all these other things that I talk about. And like I say, the show is just sort of an opportunity to talk about all those great things, answer questions that people might have. Yes.
The Ultimate Comics Fallout is sold.
Marvelous. And see, I don't even have time to go into all the history of all these things because you guys are just buying them straight out of my hand. Okay, so last but not least, this one is a bit of a modern classic. As I say, we talked about some 70s stuff, some 80s stuff, some 90s stuff, and now we're going to talk about another new beginning. New beginnings. Star Wars #1. The return to Marvel Comics of the classic space drama Of course, it was originally a Marvel comic back in the 70s, and then it went to Dark Horse for a long time, and then very recently came back to Marvel. And this is the Dynamic Forces Alex Ross cover of Star Wars #1, signed by Alex Ross. If you ever watch the Wednesday video when he does the timeless things, or any opportunity I have to show you an Alex Ross cover like Immortal Hulk or Captain America, he's been doing a lot of great things. I just think he's one of the best artists of all time. He's a real treasure to have in comics. And I mean, come on, seeing his homage to the original Star Wars is just awesome. Signed by Alex Ross there. And this one's certified. There's your certificate of authenticity. So you don't have to take my word for it that it's signed by Alex Ross. It says so right there. Now, what makes it even cooler, and the reason this is my headline book, if you can see that, there are only 50 of these, and this one's #3. #3 is a pretty ridiculously low number. 50 of them, honestly, is a pretty ridiculously low number, but to get certified #3 is pretty darn awesome. So there's your Alex Ross cover, signed by him. This one's got a $300 price tag because Alex Ross autographs are pricey. And again, low numbered certificates are kind of pricey too. But this is sure awesome. If you're a big Star Wars fan, if you're an Alex Ross fan, this is the first issue of the return to Marvel Comics. Guess what's that, 2018? Maybe been a little longer than that. Good stuff. Star Wars #1. Like I say, love me some Alex Ross. This is the gem of the evening. Again, new beginnings. It's a big deal when a franchise changes publishers. It was a big deal when Star Wars went from Marvel to Dark Horse. I was going to bust out Dark Empire #1, the first Dark Horse Star Wars book, because that's definitely a new beginning worth noting. And Dark Horse did it for years and years, and then it comes back to Marvel for a new beginning. This is the first of 2 series.
You might want to just clarify that barcode on the front is not attached to the book.
That is correct. This barcode is on the outer bag, noting the certified version. The real barcode of the book is probably under it. Just so, that's a very good point, so people don't think it's weird. And you can check out the scan on the website. I just love showing anything Alex Ross. And again, you folks love those certificates, and #3 out of 50 is pretty darn awesome. So pick that one up before I wise up and take it home myself, because you know I'm a big Star Wars guy. So lots of fun things, lots of great books to check out, lots of things for folks to research on their own time. Things like Kirby going to Marvel, things like Heroes Reborn, all sorts of fun stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot the cool part. Make it live. Let's make it live. Star Wars #1 by Alex Ross. #3 of 50.
And we're live.
So kudos to you folks for picking up some of the books already. Those of you who are kicking it around, you should grab them before somebody beats you to it. Talked about all kinds of fun and interesting books.
Iron Man sold.
And the Iron Man sold. All right. That leaves just the Star Wars and the X Factor. Folks, that X Factor is a lot of fun. Pick that book up. If you're an X fan, that's a great book. So hope you had some fun. If you've got any questions, comments about some of the eras that we've talked about, some of the artists that we've talked about, some of the books that we've talked about, go ahead and throw them out there as we begin to wrap it up. We will come back to the present tomorrow at 2 p.m. Tune in Facebook Live and YouTube, folks, for Comic Shop Talk Live as we hang out with the comic book community and talk about this week's books and get back to the modern classics. And then I want to mention our February publisher sale, now going on 18 or 19 years. Every February, we do a different publisher on sale each weekend. The first weekend of February is our big Marvel sale. So when you go to black-cat-comics.com, the first Saturday and Sunday of February, everything in the Marvel category will be on sales at 25% off. 25% is pretty solid. So take advantage of those sales. I always say, pick up that book you've had your eye on, but use the big sale to try something new, something fun, something exciting. And then we have a different publisher or group of publishers each weekend. So check out the newsletter, check out the website, or tune in to Comic Shop Talk Live tomorrow, and we'll tell you all about that. And as always, you can always find us at black-cat-comics.com. You can find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube, sign up for our newsletter, and we'll send you all the fun info about the store and reviews for the new comics and all that good stuff every week as well. That's what we do here at black-cat-comics.com. And TJM Navy USA America says, I like this. Do more of them. We do this the last weekend of every month. At least that's the plan. This is the last Friday of every month. So this is the last Friday of January. January is a great time for new beginnings. So that was the theme of this one. The last Friday of February, maybe we'll do Valentine's Day comics. Maybe I can dig up some cool Lois Lane, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane's or something for you. So thanks for the compliment. Like I say, tune in the last Friday of every month, and we'll do it all over again. Last call for questions, comments, concerns, or queries. All right. Well, like I say, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Hope you had as much fun as I did. We'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. for Comic Shop Talk Live. Thanks, guys.